How are y'all doing this evening? Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I'm YouTube. I don't know. Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
I don't know what else to
As
say. It's
everybody
okay.
takes their seats, I have a joke. I'm proud. Okay. What did the sink say to the toilet?
Sorry.
Wow, you look really flushed. All right, that's all I got. That was good. Oh. What did the science book say to the math book? Wow, you got problems.
Element.
I was buried beneath my shame. Who could carry that kind of weight? It was my turn till I met. I was breathing but not alive. All my failures I've tried to hide. It was my turn till I met. You called my name and I ran out of that grave. Out of the darkness into your glorious day. You called my name and I ran out of that grave. Out of the darkness to your glorious day. Now your mercy has saved my soul. Now your freedom is all that I know. The old name, Jesus, when I met you, oh, what a day when you called my name and I ran out of that grave. Out of the darkness into your glorious day. You called my name and I ran out of that grave. Out of the darkness into your glorious day. I needed rescue, my sin was heavy, my chains break at the weight of your glory. I needed shelter, I was an orphan, now you call me a citizen of heaven. When I was broken, you were my healing, now your love is the air that I'm breathing. I have a future, my eyes are open, 'cause when you called my name, I ran out of that grave. Out of the darkness into your glorious day. forgot the words.
Take me to my knees, buddy.
Sorry, I forgot the words.
Forgot the words.
Right. Okay. Okay, ready?
I'm ready.
Second try is the charm.
Come set your rule and reign in our hearts again. Increase in us, we pray. Unveil why we're made. Come set our hearts ablaze with hope, like wildfire in our very souls. Holy Spirit, come invade us now. We are your church. We need your power in us. Your kingdom first. We hunger and we thirst. Refuse to waste our lives for your joy and pride. To see the captives' hearts released, the hurt, the sick, the poor at ease. We lay down our lives for heaven's God. We are your church. We pray, revive this earth. Build your kingdom here. Let the darkness fear. Show your mighty hand. Heal our streets and land. Set your church on fire. Win this nation back. Change the atmosphere. Build your kingdom here. We pray. Oh. Just now, reaching the near and far. No force of hell can stop your beauty changing heart. You made us more, much more than this. Awake the kingdom seed in us. Fill us with the strength and love of Christ. We are your church. We are the hope on earth. Build your kingdom here. Let the darkness fear. Show your mighty hand. Heal our streets and land. Set your church on fire. Win this nation back. Change the atmosphere. Build your kingdom here. We pray. Whoa.
was my cross you bore, so I could live in the freedom you died for. And now my life is yours, and I will sing of your goodness forevermore. And worthy is your name, Jesus. You deserve the praise. all pray with me? God, you are worthy. Thank you so much for all your sacrifices and blessings that you've given us. I pray that we'll listen with open hearts as Robert preaches, and I pray that you will help us to love our neighbor and remember that you are worthy. In name I pray, amen.
There you go. I think I'm on. Yay. Thank you, Riley, for praying for me. All right. A couple announcements. We got some slides. We're going to kick off a new series tonight called Wise Up. Hey, Natalie. I didn't know you were here. So that's good. So called Wise Up. I hope you guys will engage. We'll talk through this. A little bit different than Ecclesiastes. We'll talk about that in a minute. But that's where we're going to be tonight. We're going to be looking at Proverbs 1, looking at just kind of surveying really the entire book, but really homing in on chapter 1, the first 7 verses. And then we're going to talk about some key verses moving on starting next week. But a couple announcements as we get past just that intro real quick. I don't expect you to read this calendar, but there is a calendar. Your parents have it. You have it. There's a Google link to this calendar. It's been updated. Some of the dates have changed because the school date, if you didn't know this, you're going back to school on August 16th. Well, not you guys. You guys are going back some other time. But those that are not seniors will go back to school on August 16th if you're at Cabot High School or junior high or wherever, freshman academy. So you're going back on the 16th. You can get out there, see all these dates. As I update it, you can just click on that link again, and it will be live. One of the things that I want you to be aware of, as you start looking at it, I have defined the Real Days of Summer events. So I want to walk through those just a minute because I'm excited. So the first one we're going to do a full 1 day, go there, get back day to Buc-ee's. I'm addicted to Buc-ee's. We went by and on our way to Florida. How many people have not been to Buc-ee's? So you aren't even excited. You have no idea what you're missing out on. You are about, even my wife. My wife was probably skeptical, and she has her first trip to Buc-ee's. I'll put it this way. We spent $100 the first trip to Buc-ee's on the way down to Florida, and we spent $130 on the way back. Now, I'm not saying that my wife spent all that. We bought snacks. We bought beaver nuggets. How many people have eaten beaver nuggets? Oh, my goodness. Like, I ran extra so I could eat the whole bag, right? And then, I don't know. I'm just saying. Noah Brown gave me some beaver nuggets. Henley Sanders gave me some beaver nuggets. I gave me some beaver nuggets. I gave myself some more beaver nuggets. It was a bad deal. So all I'd say, we're going to go to Buc-ee's. So the date's listed on there. We're actually doing that, I think, on the 16th. I'll have to look again. But it's all defined on there. We're going to go to Buc-ee's. We're going to get there at 10 o'clock in the morning because we're going to leave here at 6, right? We're committed, right? We have a rule in the Jose household. You don't pass Buc-ee's and not stop, okay? So that means we're going to go to Buc-ee's, go to a lake that's about 30 minutes away. They've got a beach. I'm probably going to try in some way, somehow, gather kayaks. Is Henley here? Henley's here, right? Tell your parents. I'm going to ask them. But I'm going to see if I can borrow their kayaks. We have a whole this, what do they call that? Armada of kayaks floating around. And so we're going to go, and you can fish if you want to bring some fishing poles. So adults, JJ, you can just fly down there. All I'd say, we're going to hang out for about 3 hours. We're going to go swim, do whatever we do. And then listen, no better place to change than Buc-ee's. If you've not been in their bathroom, like when I went to Plano, Texas, I would go to the bathroom even if I didn't need to use the bathroom, just so I could walk in the back. Elizabeth Red, you can't even reach and touch the walls. It's humongous. And it's clean. I mean, it smells good. There's wipes for the seat. There's wipes for your hands. There's wipes for your other parts. I'm just saying, it's awesome, right? The only thing that's missing in a Buc-ee's bathroom is a shower. But hey, they got body wipes. I'm just saying, right? It's better than what we had when we went to the Creation Museum. Do you remember that? Man, there were some kids that did not use body wipes. That was a bad deal. Even in the cold, at 4 degrees, it was cold, and they're still funky, right? But all that to say, we're going to come back to Buc-ee's, and guess what? We're going to snack up. We're going to grab our next bag of beaver nuggets, and we're going to drive back home. Okay, so it's a full day. And I'm way more excited than y'all are, but I'm just telling you, whoever goes and you're skeptical, I will promise you, God will make you a believer that Buc-ee's is the real deal, okay? So if you ever... Sounds like an idol. It is an idol. So that's why I only go once a year, right? So this is my Mecca, my journey. So, and then I limit myself, right? So it's all in moderation. But I'm going to declare God's glory because I'm bringing my family with me, and we're going to have some Jesus time while we're at the lake. Probably have to get baptized again. No, I'm just kidding. That's not true. That's not doctrinally appropriate. You can't get baptized twice. You just get wet the second time. Okay, all that being said, our next event we're going to go hang out the Cato River. Do y'all remember us going on the float last year? How many went to the Cato River last year? And did y'all remember Ken and his like crazy group of let's run into all the trees? Y'all remember that? Like, where's Ken at? Oh, he's in the trees. So here's the deal. We're going to go and we're going to learn, right? So we're going to learn from our mistakes. That's kind of what Proverbs is about. And we're going to teach you that have gone. First of all, don't hang out with Ken. No, I was kidding. No, I was kidding. Really, legitimately, do not form a chain. Like those of you that, do you remember, when were you? Like if there's 12 of you, there's 12 of you running into the tree because you can't possibly steer in these little tubes, okay? But we're going to go tubing. Like, you know, you're looking, you're like, hey, there's a tree, and it's like slow motion. Let's all paddle this way. But you become this big mass, and there's not a rudder big enough in your little hands to keep you from turning. And so all I saw was Ken and his group just, right? I don't know why I'm picking on you, Ken, but it was true. Am I wrong? It was wonderful. You know, Ken was in a tree. There's another person in a tree. Tubes are going everywhere. But we eat lunch there on the river. We take coolers, and if you have the cooler, who held the cooler? Was it you, Adam? Okay, so we have two coolers, and this is hilarious. So, you know, I was bigger last time we went, right? So I can't wait to go this time. I can't wait to, because the cooler's heavy, the current catches the cooler, and man, it's like having a motor. That cooler just takes off, and you're like, woo, here we go. You know what I mean? This is fun stuff. I think it was Tanner. Yeah, because Tanner, he's bowed up, but that cooler took him for a ride. And I was saying hi to Thomas one time. Tom's like, hey, come hang out with us. And there I go. See you later. And Debbie's like a mile behind me because the cooler is taking me off now. So watch out for the cooler. But all I'd say, we're going to stick our lunches in there, our drinks. It's a fun time. The last thing we're going to do this summer is that we're going to go to Hot Springs. I called Andrew today. So the prodigal son we're going to go see since he hasn't returned home yet. But I told him, hey, man, we're going to do, and he hasn't committed all the way, but I'm praying he will. So we're going to, if you have his number, say, hey, Robert said you're going to come see us. Just harass him a little bit, put a little Jose bullying on him. But we're going to go right before school starts on the 11th, August 11th. And we're going to go to an adventure park that's a zip line and also a ropes course. And it's in Hot Springs. I'm like, dude, I'm bringing First Cabot to you. Please come see me. Right, let me see that baby girl. Let me see your wife. Let me see the boys. Let's see the family. We miss them, right? Y'all miss them? I miss them. We miss you, Andrew. I know you creep on us and you see us sometimes. We miss you, man. Did you just hear what Ken said? Ken, there's a shell, but there's a lot of softness under that shell. He still misses the boy. But all I'd say, those are our 3 real days of summer events, okay? So get on the calendar, look at that, take a look. Hey, listen, I know some of you seniors, you may be like taking off. You can come back the 11th and come hang out at Hot Springs. It'll be fun. May 21st is graduation, and with the concept of that you guys are at graduation and I won't be able to go, we're just going to be doing a movie night that night. It's May. Well, we could. We're probably not. So we're going to do a shout out to you guys. So we'll work that out. So all that stuff's going on there. Other things you need to be worried about, the little green square hanging with Jose dates are on there. As we get into the fall, our Sunday on Sundays are there. We're going to do a lot of different things with ministry through those, with our Hang with Jose dates. So if you've not done those before, especially those that are 7th graders, you're like, what is that? Did we do that last year? It's just hangout time. We're just hanging out with one another. We're just family, okay? We'll do some ministry. We'll do some fun. We'll do a lot of eating popsicles. We like popsicle galore, things like that. But we'll do some things ministry here. We'll do some things in the community. So it'll be really fun, okay? Other things you need to be worried about this Sunday, our student spring retreat is April 16th and 17th. If you're going, you want to register by this Sunday. That means you have to go out on our website, scroll to the bottom, click on the event, click on register here, and register. If you do not register by this Sunday, the cost goes up $10. And I can't guarantee you're going to have a shirt. Okay? Does that make sense? And so we're going to order shirts on Monday, and we're going to order lanyards and everything else. I got to organize our groups. This is essentially our Disciple Now, but at a camp. Okay, so right now, it looks like we have 6 other churches that are going to join us. We probably may have up to 100 students, potentially. If not 100, at least 50 to 60, and they're not all going to be us, okay? So it's going to be really cool. We've got some that are Lone Oak, some in Sherwood. We've even got a church from Searcy mixed in there. So it's going to be cool. You're going to be hanging out by your grade, by your gender, in your groups. You'll be doing some rec that afternoon. It's just a one-night deal. We're going to leave here at 5 o'clock, head down, have a session, do worship, do a small group time, do a late-night rec, and then try to sleep and wake up in the morning and just do like a crazy sprint to the finish kind of thing. And we're just going to go hard. We're going to have 3 sessions, and then we're going to have another group rec, and we're going to come home and be back probably before dinner that Saturday, okay? But all that to say, it's D-Now wrapped into a camp. Does that make sense? We still can't, even though with the mandates being released, relieved, lifted, whatever word you want to use there, we still are not comfortable putting you guys in homes. People aren't ready to have you in their homes yet, and that's understandable. I'm not sure if I'm ready to have you in my house, but we're going to do that anyways. But all that to say, we can't do D-Now like we usually do it, and I'm not sure if we'll ever be able to do it, but we're going to try this out and see that it works. So we've got a band, we've got a speaker, we've got college leaders. I say we have a speaker, you have me, okay? But we're going to be talking about fighting, so y'all make sure you sign up. I'm going to send a reminder text this weekend. I'm also going to do a promo video once again, just to say, hey, make sure you guys sign up. So don't be that person that waits till next week, because I can't guarantee you a shirt. And there may be a point where they cut off. I mean, if we get to 150, that's going to be too many. Does that make sense? And that would be really cool, but we may get to that point. If that's the case, you want to make sure you don't miss out, okay? How many are already signed up? You're like proud about it. Okay. I don't know. Are you signed up? I'm not your keeper, man. I should be. Yeah, you should know better. So take a look. I can look if you need me to, but did you sign up? Did you make your mama do it?
I don't remember. My mom didn't sign me up.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll look for you tonight. Other thing that you need to look at is camp. So camp is filling up. We've only got 20 spots, but I have petitioned for more, but I need you guys to let me know, and we need to do that as soon as possible. Here's the deal. Every other church in the camp or in the state that has gone to Super Summer is not going to Super Summer because Super Summer's not happening. So we're going to be going to Solid Springs. And so they're adopting Solid Springs, right? So they're filling out and they're doing registrations just like Super Summer Camp would. They're getting booked. So I've got 20 spots open. The cost is $269. You need to pay $75 for your deposit. The dates are listed there, 6/28/72. If you're in band or if you are in athletics, that is a dead week. That means you are not practicing, you're not doing anything. We've made sure we coordinated. It doesn't matter if you like, I quit the band, so you graduated, I'm moving on. But all that to say, that's a week is free for you. I know that may be time with your family, but if you want to go to camp, I need you to register, okay? So there's not really a deadline as much. 6:20 is what I've listed there, because pretty much by the time you get to 6:20, it's going to be too late to register. But I'm just telling you, the sooner the better. In fact, if you can't register by the end of April, chances are there's not going to be spots. Okay? So, but I've worked out a deal with a couple of youth pastor friends of mine that have extra spots, and we can kind of use some of theirs. Okay? Lots of other churches are going to be there. If you've not been to Solid Springs, it's a legitimate camp. It's really cool. It's just different than Super Summer. It's not on a campus. It's not on a college campus. So it's just at a more camp like we're going to Bud Creek Camp. Okay? Other than that, guys, just look out there, take a look at all the different things I put on the calendar. I'll send a link for that. Mission trip, I'll start working on that information probably towards the end of the month. We pretty much know when we're going. We pretty much know what we're doing, but I've got to meet with the Arkansas Baptist Children's Home to talk through the details of us making that mission camp happen. They're excited. We're obviously going to do basketball goals. Houston's not going to beat me up if we don't do the basketball goals. But y'all did a great job raising the money for that. But we're going to do a lot of other things during that week. And as I get that information, I'll go ahead and put the registration form out there. There's not a cap on that. As many that want to come. Does that make sense? And this camp is going to be very affordable. Does that make sense? So typically mission trips are like $500, right? Well, I think we spent $750 when we went to Boston or something like that. Chicago, I can't remember what we spent last year, $350, something like that, $400. All that to say, this is not going to be that type of mission trip. It's in state, but I think it's going to be that impactful. One, we're going to be doing God's ministry in Monticello for the surrounding communities right there, Arkansas Baptist Children's Home. And it's going to be taking what we've typically done at the Arks Baptist Children's Home to another level, okay? And so you guys want to be a part of that. I know you do, especially my seniors. Y'all have been really strong about being there. You guys want to finish strong there and leave your mark because y'all have been great. We've been going, 4 years now? Does that sound about right? Maybe even 5 years. Golly, we went even back, Nathan Dill's days. Okay, so it's been, Houston, you're 6th grade, right? When we went there? So it's been like 6 years. What is going on right now? I feel old like instantly. Old Houston by himself, lone 6th grader, outworking everybody. So him and Luke, there's good days. Luke, my son. Oh, I don't know, 13 minus 6, he was 7, right? You and Luke were buddies because y'all were the youngest, right? It came down, we played ultimate frisbee, and we're like, all right, who wants one of the little guys? But, so, they're great, they're awesome. I don't know why I'm picking on them, but, all right. Those are all the announcements. So y'all ready to dive in? All right. Man, I'm excited. It's been a minute. All right, we're gonna follow a pattern a little bit because we've been doing context. I'm gonna move wherever this is. I feel like I'm gonna break this. This looks very expensive. And if I go down, I don't know if I'll gracefully get back up. So, all right. So we've been doing context, right? And so we ask questions. So let's kind of set some context here. So what did we talk about with Ecclesiastes? What was the one thing I told you? As you read Ecclesiastes, what can you not do? You can't just stop in the middle of it. That's kind of true. You had to read all of it. Very good. So it's not something you can just read like a part and say, I've got the context. And if you remember, we think it's Solomon. I was okay with it being Solomon. I gave some reasons at the very beginning, loosely, that it potentially may have been maybe someone that's not Solomon, but maybe it was Solomonesque. Remember I used that word, right? But all that to say, whoever that was, it was pretty obvious that they were where in their life? Were they 13? Near death. They're about to die. They're older. They're looking backwards on life. And what was the statement? What was the statement that we read? You get to the end of what? Not vanity. What was the thing that he said at the very end of Ecclesiastes? I said, if you don't get to this chapter and hear this, he says, when it all comes down to this, you need to do what? Love your Lord and obey him, right? Right. Say again? And keep his commandments, right? And he was speaking to vanity, that all things are vanity. He talked about wisdom. What do you say about wisdom specifically? It's been 2 weeks, guys. Come on. We got to hatch some of this about. Like anyone other than Thomas. No, I was kidding. Thomas, you can speak. What do you got? What you got? What do you say about wisdom?
Wisdom comes with a price.
Comes with a price. He said that. That's true. What else? What did I preach on like all Testament row? What did I preach on like that whole Wednesday? What did I say about wisdom? She's like, I don't know. I know it was good.
Wisdom makes you sorrowful.
It does make you sorrowful? Yeah. Started, what did you say? Listening, God? Okay. I think that's somewhere in there, loosely maybe. That preacher kid. Okay, listen. Wisdom was this, right? Because at the end of the day, if we look at Solomon, let's say it is Solomon, and we look at that he had an abundance of wisdom, because what did he ask for? He asked for wisdom. So he had this discernment, right? And he was a very wise king, right? And when you look at him having that gift that God gave him, okay, and he's reflecting back, it's great that he has the wisdom, but at the end of the day for him, as he's about to die, as Thomas says, on his deathbed, he's saying there's something more important than just having wisdom. And that's where the vanity comes in. Because whatever you pursue, right? Money, fame, wisdom, accolades, whatever, it's going to fade. If it's of this world, it's going to fade. You know, we hear, store up your treasures in heaven. He's starting to think, hey, listen, at the end of the day, love your God with everything you got and obey his commandments. It's an Old Testament quote that's reiterated again, right, from Christ and even the other authors in the New Testament. Because at the end of the day, that's the most important thing. And Jesus says what? Those 2 commandments, love God more than anything, love your neighbor, and all the other commandments are hinged on these 2. Starting to see a parallel there? Does that make sense? When we get into Proverbs, Solomon is not, if it is Solomon, okay? And in Proverbs, it's pretty defined there. But if we look at Solomon, it's not him being at the end of his life. I would say it's probably more him being on the other side of being very young and receiving that wisdom, have experienced some life, and he's looking back saying, man, I wish someone had told me this. And he's starting to speak to the young. He's specifically talking about the young. We're going to walk through some of that, okay? So that's kind of the context, the difference of Ecclesiastes versus Proverbs. And the one thing with Proverbs is that you don't need to read the whole book of Proverbs at one time and try and grasp it all. Because there's so much that Solomon, and it's almost like this, and I was talking to Ken about it earlier. It's like, or maybe it wasn't Ken, maybe it was JJ. I don't know who it was. It was one of my friends that's close to me. But you're a friend, man. Why do you keep saying that? So it's like Solomon's walking, you know what I mean? And he's like, oh, man, that's good. That's good. I need to write that down. This is probably more like our age, JJ. Ken, you probably had tablets. I'm not sure. But, you know, you have a thought and you had a voice recorder. Do you remember those? Because that was like the cool thing, right? I had those little bitty cassettes that were tiny. You know, anyone that went to college, like back in the 80s and 90s, that you put it on your desk. Your son's pointing to you. That's awesome. But now you can just put your app. And it translates I can't believe this. I'd have rocked college even more than I did. Okay, I didn't really rock college at all, but all that to say, if you had an app and you listened to someone talking and it translated and put it in a note document, I could just study that. What? Because this is what I had to do. What did he say? And then you'll hear some girl talking about something, some guy talking about something. You hear like someone wrestling with paper, and then you can't hear the word, and it's the one thing that you're going to get on the test. And if you never listen to a recording on a cassette tape, that's what it sounds. That's what you hear most of the time. You're like trying to put on your like super hearing, you know, because you got to pass this test, right? But all that to say, it's like Solomon's walking around with his little voice recorder, and he has a thought, and he just writes or speaks into it, whatever, right? And if you read Proverbs, if you just read it, like if you even get in chapter 1, we get into 8, you're like, what does 8 have to do with 1 through 7? Well, it's relevant. Okay, because he's trying to give wisdom to the young, but it's like there's not a very clear transitional statement, right? You know, I think of Ken, I think of Terry. They start doing transition for music. They do talk about transition from point A to point B. None of that's happening in Proverbs. Like it's very easy to go, where am I now, right? So you got to take this elephant and eat it one bite at a time. Have you ever heard that statement? How do you eat an elephant? You eat one bite at a time. I don't know who ever wants to eat an elephant. That's a lot of elephant, right? But it's a weird thing, right? Well, there's a lot of weird things happening in this world, and we start to look at Solomon looking at things that young people are encountering, and he's saying, hey, as you encounter these weird things or you encounter these experiences, let me give you some wisdom, because I wish someone had given it to me. He's going to be a little bit harsh, I'm going to be honest with you, because he's going to tell you, hey, you fools, but he's literally saying to you, those of you that do not have experience, those of you that don't have knowledge, I'm trying to share with you something that's going to help you, okay? But he's looking back at himself, and he's looking at his heart and how he was, just being honest, very arrogant and prideful in his approach to life, and very much like you guys, to be honest with you, okay? Yeah, especially you, okay? Yeah, I just called you out, Adam, on national TV. No, just kidding. I love you. Hey, Ecclesiastes, man. Remember, Ecclesiastes, okay? But all that to say, I want you to listen and listen tight, okay? But let's talk about this. So we're going to talk through, Lane's like, is he ever going to get to the passages? Context, man. There you go, you're good. All right, so who wrote it? Let's read this. We're just going to read verse 1, just real quick. So it says, the Proverbs of Solomon, son of David, king of Israel. So, who's writing this? There you go. Not hard to translate. It's pretty black and white. Well, my place is red and white, but Henrietta, I'm so glad I saw that your mouth was moving, because if it was something else. Those are some of the things I would hear on my recordings when I was in college. Like, oh, that dude ate Taco Bell last night. Let's miss something. All right, so verse 1 tells us it's written by Solomon, okay? Now listen, we got that, and I've said it over and over again. Is Solomon wise? He's very, very wise, right? And someone that's worthy to listen to. So let's listen. Why is he writing this? Next couple of verses, we'll read this. We'll start in verse 2. It says, for learning what wisdom and discipline are, for understanding insightful sayings, for receiving wise instruction, in righteousness, justice, and integrity, for teaching shrewdness to the inexperienced, key word, knowledge and discretion to a young man. A wise man will listen and increase his learning, and a discerning man will obtain guidance. For understanding a proverb or a parable, the words of the wise and the riddles. So who's he speaking to? Hey, go back one, guys. Did I miss a slide? Oh, it may be out of order. That's fine. So who's he speaking to? There you go. Who's it for? The youth. Okay, and we see that in verse 4. It says, teaching shrewdness to the who? The inexperienced. Now listen, when I say you're inexperienced, and I'm thinking about my son, because, he like turned 13, and y'all know this, guys, and look at my seniors. It's like instant attitude, right? Don't, it's right there. It's on tape. Like, right there. So when I say inexperienced to you, you're like, who's inexperienced? You. Okay? Okay? So like when we're reading Proverbs, it goes, you foolish, or you fool, you. Okay? Here's what he's saying. You're inexperienced, you don't know. If I said, hey, listen, and my dad did this, and I hated it, okay? He's like, listen, if you're going to drive a car and leave my house, you're going to have to do two things. Change the oil and change the tire, right? Well, that's great. Thanks, Dad. I appreciate you, which I do. I can change the tire and I can change the oil. I don't, right? I got to a point where the cost-benefit analysis of money, I learned that in college. It'd take me an hour. It'd take me 15 minutes to drop it at Walmart. I can shop, and hey, man, I'll just give someone else to do it, right? I mean, I'm helping the economy, right? That kind of stuff. All that to say, when my dad tells me that, that's really cool that he's giving me this direction. But what if I'm going down the street, I'm going to go visit my friend or whatever, and he gives me the keys to the car, and he's never taught me how to drive. And then the conditions are I have to change the tire, be able to change the tire, and change the oil. What if he's never taught me how to change the tire or the oil? And how many of you in here have changed your oil? I knew Landy on some of you guys. First time you ever did it? Literally, first time you ever did it? Did anyone ever do it like right after mom and dad just turned off the car? Or you turned off your car? Have anyone do that? Very stupid. Okay, let me tell you why. The oil's hot, and there's a little nut, right? You loosen it up, and the oil comes out. And there's almost, unless you're really quick, and maybe there's some guys in here, ladies in here that have done change their oil, and that you are more crafted than me, but there's never been a time that I've turned the nut, right, and not got at least a little bit of oil on me. Now, I can do it without getting my whole hand drenched. I can't say the first time that didn't happen, right? The first time I'm like, oh, it's hot. Oh, my hands got black all over me. What's going on? You ever done something like that? You're like, the snake's biting me. What do you need to do? Let go, right? So, but you're in the moment, you're like, I can't. It's biting me. Anyone have a snake bite you? You never had those little green snakes? Isn't that kind of freaky? Because you're like, if you've never been bit by a snake. Okay? And I'm not asking you to listen, those watching at home, Pastor Terry, I'm not being an advocate for people handling snakes. I promise you. That's not that kind of Baptist church, okay? I'm just saying that moment that you're like, hey, look at this little green snake, and it bites you, it freaks you out because you're like, these little things, it's biting you. And then you're like, man, that doesn't hurt as bad. Oh, wait, it is hurting that bad. What kind of snake is this? Am I about to die? And like your heart rate's beating, and it's just this little garter snake, right? And they're technically not able to bite you, supposedly. Liar, it's biting me, right? You know what I'm saying? But in the moment, that's the first time it's ever happened, and you're like, what do I do? So you know what I'm doing? Man, that poor snake. It did not last more than a couple seconds because it had permanent, like Robert Jose, like finger marks on it. I was like, it's biting me, right? And I'm thinking that the more that I squeeze it, the more it's gonna stop biting me. You know what it does? It just can't undo what it's doing because I've got a hold of it, right? But that shows, okay, I'm being very transparent about my ignorance. I was a city kid. We don't have snakes in Hawaii, okay? You feel me? Legitimately, we do not have snakes in Hawaii. We have mongooses. They'll eat anything. Snakes don't have a chance. If they're snakes, they're pets. But there's not water moccasins. There's definitely not copperheads. There's not blue racers. Anyone know what those are? Oh, yeah. What in the world, man? Has anyone seen a blue racer like on the water? It lifts up about 2 feet, and it's like, I'm coming after you. And that thing looks like a pencil. And you're looking at it like, dude, I will do to you what I did to that little green snake that bit me when I was 7 or 8 years old. You know what I mean? He doesn't know what he's dealing with. He don't care. Blue racers, they want to intimidate you, and they will chase you. They'll chase you on the land. They'll chase you on water. It's freaky. Am I right? How many people have gone like to the Buffalo River, Spring River, floating? Keep an eye out. There's a lot of blue racers up there. They're really cool, but when if they lock in on you, okay? Because they are not afraid of you. They're like those little Chihuahua dogs or little yapping dogs. I run a lot, right? So I have to be on the lookout for dogs every time. Miniature anything, right? I'm like, I'm Filipino. I will eat you. Go back to your house. Oh, dude, I mess with dogs. This story, this is pretty funny. This is not in my sermon notes, by the way. Listen, here, let me explain my inexperience. I started running when I was in 7th grade, and I started running a couple miles because I wanted to go try out for the basketball team at Horace Mann Junior High. I was not skilled enough. I was not able to advance beyond my lack of ability to get on the team, but I was going to try. So I started running, but I lived on Reeder Road, which is out East End, Arkansas, gravel roads, country people. Do you feel what I'm saying? And I knew there's a chance of like potential, encounters with people, dogs maybe. I was in the city, dogs mostly stay in their yards, and even the ones that get out, they lick you. I had a lab that licked me to death. But I got about halfway down my road, which is about a quarter mile, right? And I need to run 2 miles because the deal for the tryouts were you had to run 2 miles in less than 16 minutes. And at the time, I was running about 2 miles in like 20 minutes, okay? I was very inexperienced in running. I had asthma. I'd kind of overcome all that stuff. All that to say, I'm starting my first long run, like a mile, right? I know, Grant, that's not very far, but for me, it was far, okay? As a baseball player, we don't run a lot. Not then, anyways. So but I was a baseball player, trying to be a basketball player. But all that to say, I get a quarter mile down the road, and this chow comes up. Chow, like a chow. Like the really, and I'm going to show that I have a very great disdain for chows. Big, fluffy looking lion-looking thing, and it kind of looks cute, like, like a little teddy bear type thing. So this dog, like, runs up, to the edge of its property, right, and it's doing what it's supposed to do. This is my territory. Well, my inexperienced self, I'm thinking, that thing's not on a leash. It's not behind a fence. If I can, sweet talk it and to stop barking, maybe it'll let me run past it, right? So I'm like, it's the worst thing to do, right? I turned into prey because this is what I did. Hey, little dog. So I got smaller, right? This is what you need to do. You get bigger, right? So I'm trying to talk to this little chow, and it's still barking at me, and it's starting to do this curl on its lip, and I'm like, man, this thing is not listening to me. So I'm thinking, maybe if I get down on my knee, right, this will help out. Hey, man, that thing came at me like Cujo. And before I knew it, I was on my back, and I was holding this dog from taking a bite out of me. Luckily, my friend Buffy that lived at this house, Buffy McCumpsey, it wasn't that, but she pulled her dog off of me, and I'm saying this, and I probably never told anybody this. She's like, oh, I'm so sorry my dog peed on you. I'm like, y'all feel me? Y'all feel me? So, you know what I did? I didn't finish my run. I just went back home. I'm like, I'll try this another day. I've come very far from those days. I try and get big. So if you see me in Magnus Creek, like Emma Scales not here, Henley, I really don't have any issues. Your scout has tried to take me out, legitimately. Scout, oh my goodness. All I'd say, if a dog comes up to me, I just get big. I get big. I don't get small anymore. I don't want to be on my back trying to choke something out, right? Now I get big and I tell them what I think about them. I will eat you. I will put you in a hot dog bun and put ketchup on you, and I will go to town on you. And it works every time. They don't leave. They don't mess with me anymore, okay? But listen to me. I've told you all this story for relevance sake. As a 13-year-old kid, had no clue what I was doing. Solomon is telling you, you're going to experience some things in life that he's experienced. And he's trying to share with you that are inexperienced. And I'm going to challenge you with this, that as we go through these passages over the next couple of weeks, that you need to really take to heart the things he's sharing with you. Because at the end of the day, what he spoke to in Ecclesiastes, he's starting to speak to you now in Proverbs. Now listen, he's not the only author in Proverbs. We'll get to later, chapter 30, 31, there's some other kings that share some things, and we'll get into some of those passages. There's some really good stuff in here. But he's really targeting you guys as the youth to say, listen, let me share with you. And he's really saying, I think if you can get into his heart, get into his mind as he's writing these Proverbs, I want you to know some of the things that I experienced, that I went through. I wish someone had sat down with me. As I look back when I was your age, and you've heard this ever since I've ever preached here at First Baptist Cabot, some of the things that I preached to you on, I wish that someone had shared with me. Idolatry, as Molly called me out on with my beaver nuggets, right? I didn't realize that I'd made things in my life idols. When you hear the word idol, you're like, what? You think of like Indiana Jones and the gold thing, right? And maybe a precious baseball card. I had a baseball card from like Mickey Mantle that was worth, I said $1 million, probably $5 or whatever. But, it was signed, and it was not really signed, but I thought it was. But don't you mess with my Mickey Mantle card, because I was a baseball player, and I love Mickey Mantle. I love St. Louis Cardinals. Some of the St. Louis Cardinals had Ozzie Smith, all these different things. My wife bought me some Ozzie Smith cards. I still kind of got them tucked away. All that to say, it's easy for us to make idols, but when we talk about idols in our life, we don't easily recognize them. Feel me? Boyfriends, girlfriends, the obsession that we go through. And I wish that a man had sat me down and said, listen, no matter how much you feel, okay, that person can never be number one in your life. That was a hard lesson for me, because even when I met Debbie and she was worthy in my heart to love her with everything I had to recognize that she still couldn't become my new idol. That God had to be my number one. It's okay for her to be number two. And biblically it was okay with number two. And she was okay with it being number two because she wanted God to be number one in my life. Because when I made her number one, what happens when, things aren't going so well, right? Maybe with her or even with me, right? Who's floating this boat now? We need to be dependent on God. So if I wish someone had talked to me when I was 13, 14, 15, 16, and started talking about the things you put time into, the things you put energy into, the things that you idolize. Because I'm just going to tell you this, guys. You start sowing and investing in all these things of this world, you're going to reap the benefit of those things. And if you start sowing everything you have into a person or to an idea and it not being God, you're going to come up short. And it's going to lead you to a path of destruction, possibly even death. And if it's not physical death, it's going to feel like spiritual death because it's sin. Does that make sense? There's never a point that idolatry doesn't separate you from God. Do you feel what I'm saying? And Solomon had a lot of things, right? We talked about all the wives, how he walked into the 9th, 10th grade boys, right? Talking about all the wives last week or 2 weeks ago. But he had lots of money, right? He had lots of cattle, lots of property. He knows what it means to have a lot of stuff. For him to tell you at the end of the day, love God with all your heart and obey his commandments, I think it's huge. So as we walk through Proverbs and start looking at things, he's talking to you. Talking to you guys. Proverbs, this is for you. I think you need to take heart to what he's saying to you. Okay? Does that make sense? Now, next slide, Lane. I know I'm kind of dragging a little bit. For what? Let's kind of walk through this a little bit. Got a couple of words up there. And I'll give you the references, so I'm going to ask you, learning what? Y'all look it up. Come on, dive in there. Proverbs 1. Who's got it? Understanding. Okay. Wait, understanding is next. Learning what, though? Wisdom. Okay. So, and then what was understanding? What's he saying about understanding? Insightful saying. So understanding these things. As people tell you things, and here I'm just going to be honest with you. I think I'm here with you eye to eye and I'm preaching, but I walk into your classrooms and I realize I may have said some stuff that went like way over there. Not that I'm smarter than you, it's just I said it so passionately, or maybe my broken English didn't quite land the way I thought it did. And you're like literally saying, Miss Red, what in the world is Robert talking about, right? Man, it's important to get insight on what in the world he's talking about, right? I'm kind of giving you some stuff that God's laid on my heart. Man, I'm just going to tell you, I'm looking forward to this passage. I'm looking forward to sharing with you guys. But sometimes sometimes it doesn't connect. It's important that you guys try and get connected. That's why you go and you study. That's why you ask your parents. You talk to your life group leaders and talk about, hey, what is it? How do I apply this to my life? Does that make sense? Or you look over at Thomas and say, hey, Thomas, what did that mean to you? Tess, what did this mean to you? It's great to have some insight, right? So what about receiving? Receiving what? Verse 3. Instruction. That's great, right? How about verse 4? Teaching? Teaching what? It says teaching shrewdness. I heard someone say, was that Landon? What does your version say? Teaching what?
Mine says giving prudence.
Giving prudence? Okay, that's good. Molly, do you have a different version? Okay. So what does that mean? So what have we been doing about context? What's the biggest thing I hope and pray your life group leader has been challenging you with? What does this mean to me? When you talk about shrewdness, you talk about prudence, it's how can I apply this to my life? How is this relevant to me? Does that make sense? Because if I'm a shrewd business person, what does that mean? I'm very wise in applying the knowledge to make me profitable. Does that make sense? So if I'm getting this wisdom from the Word of God and I'm being prudent with it, I'm not just hearing it, I'm just not just receiving it, I'm taking it and I'm applying it so that I can do what? Honor God with my life. Does that make sense? So I want you to understand that concept. What's that last one? And I know it's another understanding, but understanding what? Proverbs and parables. So let's fast forward a little bit. Jesus is here, and I'm going to try and make this stick, okay? Jesus is here, and he's talking. We went through the Sermon on the Mount. Y'all remember that? But what's one of the things that he used to teach his people? Stories, parables, right? Why would he do that? So if I tell you a story about being inexperienced and you go, what did Robert tell you tonight? And you're like, man, he told us about this child that looked like Cujo and come after him. You're going to remember the story. You're going to be like, what was the biblical application? I'm not quite sure. Hopefully that will stick to you. You're like, hey, the whole book of Proverbs is talking about the inexperience. I'm trying to give you wisdom. But me sharing that story about that dog, and some of you are not going to remember the dog at all. You're just going to remember that Robert peed on himself and he, that's literally what you remember, right? Y'all didn't get it. Look, Colin, you're killing me right now. I just said that out loud. Like my wife doesn't even know this story. It's so embarrassing. Because I walk in, I'm just being honest. I walk in, I'm living with my mom, right? And she's not there. It's Saturday morning, and it's my mom's boyfriend's living there. And this guy, you just got to know, he was like military. That's his upbringing. And the first thing he says is like, what'd you do, pee on yourself? And I'm like, woo! And I cried, went to my room. And like I didn't even tell him what happened to the dog, so I tell my mom about it. So here's another thing. Do you remember the pop things? Remember those pop things? You throw them and they pop. So I've been defeated by this dog, right? I've been defeated by this dog. I'm just being honest. I've been whooped. I've been bullied by a dog. I don't ever want to run again. I don't want to go outside my house. So my mom is trying to comfort me like moms do, and she's like, and I've really thought long and hard about JJ. You're with me. You're a dude, right? I've thought long and hard about how I can not retaliate, but just be prepared for the next encounter. And so I'm crying, and my mom's in there, and my mom's boyfriend Mike is like, that boy just needs to man up. He's just being real tough, and my mom's being real soft, and I'm like pudding, man. I'm in my water bed trying to get into the water mattress. Just, dude, it was so awesome. But anyhow, I'm not talking about that. So I'm just like crying, and parents, you'll appreciate this, and kids, students, you guys do this too. It's like you're crying and you're so vulnerable, and then your mom asks you that right question: What can I do to make it better? And immediately, I need some of those pops, Mom, because I'm thinking I'll throw those pops at that thing, and I'll show him, right? Are y'all ready for the rest of the story? Because this is really good. So we go down to the gas station. I still remember it's right across from my buddy Lee Redwood's barbecue place. I went and bought this box of pops, and I've got the bag, and I've got 100 gazillion of them in my pocket, right? So I'm running like this. And so I'm like, oh, here comes the chow, and I'm like ready. I'm ready, right? So I've got them in my hand, and I'm running, right? And I'm running pretty quick because I'm ready to let this chow know you will never, ever put me in that place, right? Did I mention I was inexperienced still? So I take these pops, And I'm thinking, I'm a pitcher. I'm a baseball player, but I want to play basketball, right? I can throw, like at that time, probably an 85-mile-per-hour fastball, right? So I got some strength. I'm going to throw these pops so hard, like the roof of the house is going to blow up kind of thing. That's in my mind, right? So I go and I throw these pops at this dog that's like from me to, it's like 10 feet away, right? You know that pops have to hit like a hard surface to make the noise, right? They don't make noise when they hit the grass. So I throw this thing at this dog, and the dog is doing what y'all doing at me right now, just laughing at me. And I'm thinking in my mind, oh, baloney, whatever word you want to fill in that spot. I probably ran the fastest 3/4 miles to my buddy Levi's house that was at the end of the road with this dog on my heels. And I jumped, and he had, it was probably, the porches, the wraparound porches. I didn't even go up the steps. I just hurdled this thing. I ran into the window. Levi's like, what's wrong with you? And he starts petting whatever the dog's name is. And I'm like, I'm just going to walk home now, man. My pop props didn't work. This dude just chased me over here. He's whooped me twice now. It's a bad deal, man. I didn't soil myself that time. But I might as well have. You know what I mean? So I go back home and I cry again. Pop rocks fell. So. Now, what does that have to do with anything? What does that have to do with anything? I just told you a story, right? Jesus is telling stories. Solomon is in this time where as they are passing information from generation to generation, they tell stories. Why is that? Did they have one of these? Did they have the printed word? Now, we had scrolls, okay? But we didn't just go down to the bookstore and get the common sayings from Robert Jose. That's not, we're not going to find it anywhere. But anyhow, my point being is, you don't go to the bookstore. So if I'm going to teach Houston how to change the oil in his car, I'm going to tell him a story. Hey, man, remember when I told you about taking that little nut out there, make sure that your truck is cooled off because you don't want to burn your hand. So I'm going to tell him a story about how I burned my hand. Houston's going to remember that story. Houston's going to make sure that he doesn't repeat what I did, right? And so that's a story. Now, parables are a little bit different, right? Parables where there's like a story with not always a hidden content, but sometimes told that way. Does that make sense? But they were told in a way as if, there was this message that was going to stick. So if we listen to Solomon and he's trying to address some of these parables, he's trying to give you insight to these parables. How important would it be for you to figure out the insight to the parables that are going through the Old Testament are going to be the same parables that Jesus is going to start speaking to and against? I say against, to speak to as he's speaking against the Pharisees in the New Testament. Because, right, he's telling his people about these parables with this insight to saying, how does this apply to your life? Are you with me? And I'm saying I want you to understand this because as we go through these Proverbs, he's going to be addressing some enigmas, like puzzles, word puzzles almost. Do y'all remember D now? I'm looking at you two guys. Y'all probably hate me for bringing it up. Remember the little funky characters? Yeah, you're like, what does this mean? Well, I'm looking at you because you're dad. Brian, I'm talking about you, brother. I love you. I do. But do you remember your dad? He was very frustrated with those. They're the little symbols and they meant words and you had to figure out what those words and they left the clues. Oh, you're sick. Okay. I'm going to say that Brian, Gwen's admitting I hated it. All that to say, when you got these you're trying to definition keys.
Yeah, and then he sent it to us and we figured it out.
Yeah, what does this mean, right? So all that to say, there's some hidden meaning. Once you have the key, it helps you to understand. Does that make sense? So as we walk through Proverbs, it's kind of like God's going to kind of peel some things back open, give you kind of a key to how we deal with some parables. Why is that important? Well, one is important because, one, God's trying to share with you the inexperience, share you some wisdom about how you deal with life, how you can apply his word to your life. But he's also trying to give you a key so that as he starts to talk about and engage you in the walk in the life of Jesus Christ, that some of these parables that we encounter in Proverbs, okay, that it gives you some insight on how we deal with the parables that are spoken to in the New Testament. I'm going to try and draw those maps to you. Now, I'm looking at some of my adults like, what are you talking about right now? Just walk with me, okay? Just walk with me. They're not word for word. It's not like Spider-Man's talked about in Proverbs and Spider-Man's talked about in Matthew. It's not like that, right? But as we start to consider the conversation Solomon's having about how to unwrap these proverbs, these sayings, these stories, it's very applicable to the experience. If I teach you an algebra problem, right, or I teach you a word problem, you can gain that experience so you can do what? Use that knowledge forward. Same kind of thing. Do you feel me on this? So teachers, that's all I'm going to say about that. When we get to the lessons, you'll figure out what I'm talking about, okay? And I'll give you more specific details. But I think it's important that for what these things, as we look at the rest of Proverbs, that this is what it's for. Because I want you to know, this is like the insight to his little ditto pad. He's kind of writing these little notes down or speaking into that little voice recorder, if you will. And he's saying, hey, there's some good stuff I want you to know about. It's almost this way. It's not like he's on his deathbed. It's like, man, I'm having this epiphany. I wish I'd known these things. Let me share this with the youth. And I guarantee you when he was writing things in Ecclesiastes, right, that at the end of the day, it's great to have that while you're experiencing life. But at the end of the day, that life that you experience, so you can have the fullness and have that application of God's word into your life, it should lead you to this place where you make that declaration. All that being said, I want to love God with all I have. I want to obey his commandments. Because at the end of the day, I can't figure out everything. Because even Solomon, that has all this wisdom, didn't have it all figured out. It's not like he had perfect knowledge. Does that make sense? There's always going to be a point where you're not as smart. It's always going to be a point where there's still something you don't know. There's always going to be something, especially when you get older, and JJ and I have talked a lot about this apologetic-wise. There's always this argument that you can't finish, okay? Because we don't have the perfect knowledge of God. And part of us, and I even talked to JJ about this, when I get to heaven, that's going to be my declaration. Give me the perfect knowledge. I want to know, right? I think when we're in the presence of God, it's not going to matter. What's going to matter is that we're in his presence. I'm just going to tell you this. At the end of the day, I'm not hopefully about to die, Thomas. But at the end of the day, I pray that my life would have been lived, and I'll make this statement for you guys. And I'll repeat the same thing that was in Ecclesiastes. Love God with everything you have and obey his commandments. If I could look back in my life when I was your age, I wish I'd obeyed his commandments. There are some times when I didn't understand it. There's some times when I didn't agree with it. There's some times when I wanted to do what I wanted to do, but I'm just going to tell you, if I could go back now to this day in my life, I'm thankful for the testimony, but if I could change it, I would have obeyed God's commandments, and I would have loved him with everything I had. And everything that had been an idol in my life, I would pray he would reveal it to me so that I would make him the number one object of my affection, the number one object of my desire, the number one thing that I seek after. You with me? All right. Real quick, and I didn't leave time for a lot of discussion, JJ, now you know why. He said this he said, hey man, I hope your survey's at least 30 minutes. I said, dude, I'm good for 40 tonight, right? 45-ish, okay. But last slide, real quick, last slide. We're going to look at one last verse. And it kind of sets the stage. It's verse 7, it says this: the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and discipline. Guys, as you start to walk through Proverbs, and as you have even discussion tonight, just a little bit, kind of getting ready to launch into the rest of Proverbs, I want you to think about these questions. Are you afraid? And I say, are you afraid? I'm not saying, are you afraid of the dark? The more appropriate question may be, are you fearful of God? And I don't mean necessarily fearful as in God's about to spank you, but I think that should still be there, right? You with me? But I think that there needs to be a very healthy respect for God, that he is all-knowing, all-powerful, and he knows what's best for you. And as he gives you statements that you need to apply to your life, that even though if you don't understand them, you need to faith those things out. Does that make sense? Next question is, do you really know it all? Now, if I asked you, does anyone know it all? You're not going to raise your hand. But if I were, especially the parents in the room, right? Does your kids know it all? You're like, yes. Like Hope, I'm not going to call you out right now. But your mom was laughing the moment I said it. I'm just saying. That's all. Sydney's like, I can't teach in here. Robert's calling me out. No, but just being honest, there's a moment in time, Luke Jose, like he's gotten like this close from like getting Debbie Jose, you know what I mean? And it's because that right there, he like knows it all of a sudden. Like he turned 13, he's got attitude, he's like got a doctorate in life, right? Now, that is very true. Malin more than Luke, but Luke's definitely got some. I don't know what it is. It's testosterone, it's hormones. I don't know what it is. Every one of you, from the sweetest, I'm looking at Tess. You're probably the sweetest person I know. Even Tess, okay? There's a point where she's like, as for me and myself, I know it all. Robert cannot possibly know what's going on in here or in here, so zip it up, right? But at the end of the day, there's some moments where she's like, all right, I won't tell Robert this, but he hit the head on something today, right? I want you guys to have a point and acknowledge that we are way more prideful than we're willing to admit. And that there are points in time in our walk, you don't have to admit this, Tess, because you're so sweet. I don't want to think about it, right? Tess doesn't sin. It's not possible, right? Now I've put Tess on this pedestal. It's just, Tess is so sweet. Okay, yeah, I'm not going to do that. All that to say that there's moments in time, every one of you, including Tess, thinks you know it all. Specifically for yourself, okay? Do you think that you can do it on your own? I want to say yes, because you try and do it on your own every time. You've been doing it since you're like 2, right? And I hate to bring it up, especially you seniors, because I'm going to see your baby pictures in a little bit. So awesome. And that's the moment in time, that sweetness, when the moment you quit, like, the moment you quit soiling diapers, you step into the world of, I can do it. You're taking that vacuum cleaner and you're vacuuming. That thing ain't even plugged in. It's not even turned on, but you're doing it. No one can tell you that you're doing it wrong. You don't get out of one of us. Oh, my goodness. I can tell stories on Luke right now, but I won't. But my point being is, you guys, from like age 2, and it's not changed, you think you can do it on your own, right? And there's the thing. If I could just be Solomon for a moment, you can't. You weren't designed to do it on your own. You try and fight these battles, and I pray that you guys will come to the spring retreat because we're going to talk about this. But you try and fight these battles by yourself, and that's what's eating up. You don't want to share. You don't want to talk to your parents. You don't want to talk to your youth pastor. You don't want to talk to your life group leader. You don't want to talk to those key people that God's put in your life because you think you can do it on your own, and you think that you're supposed to do it on your own. I'm telling you, you're not. You weren't meant to live on an island by yourself. There's a reason why God's trying to give you information, give you wisdom in Proverbs, because he knows that you're going to try and do it on your own. Don't quit. You were made to be in fellowship with God and with other people. Okay? Now listen, I don't care if you're an extrovert, okay, or if you're an introvert. You can't hide introverts. You were made to fellowship with other people. I don't care if you don't like people. He said to obey the commandments. It didn't say you had to like them, right? And I don't know how many times I've heard this from my grandmother. Like, boy, I don't like you, but I do love you. And it's the only reason why you're alive right now. You know what I mean? You probably said it to Henrietta. Look, Henrietta. My point being is, you weren't meant to be by yourself. Quit doing it on your own. And let's walk a journey together. Okay, and the last one, do you need wisdom? Do you need it? I mean, are you arrogant enough to say, you know, I'm going to not really fear God because God really doesn't have the answers. God's really not real. I'm going to despise wisdom. You know, I'm praying if you're here tonight, you want wisdom. But I'm not foolish enough to think that there aren't some of you in here that really, right from the gate, before you even walk through the door, you're like, I'm just here to be here. I'm not here to learn anything. I'm here to see a friend. I'm here to just check the box. I'm here to just please my parents. I'm here to just kind of feel good that I came to church. And some of you didn't come to seek wisdom. I'm asking you this. When you kind of get in your small groups and you have this small time together, this is what I really want you to do. I just want you to pray about, man, God, soften my heart so that I will not despise discipline and I will not despise the wisdom that God's going to give me through Proverbs. Because, guys, I'm going to preach hard over the next couple of weeks. I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to stretch your mind a little bit. I pray that I'm going to stretch your heart, but I pray that God moves you more than anything I do. Okay? So like I'm giving you a survey, but this is just like the tip of the iceberg. We're about to get into it. We're about to roll up some sleeves and just go to town on this thing. Because Proverbs is such a great book. You can read one of them like every day, right? And go through every month, right? It's a perfect little scenario there. You can just read one proverb. Problem is, I can't do it. I got to stop it. I chunked it up. That's 7, right? So we're going to be taking these little chunks, piece at a time, some of the key ones. I'm not going to go through every single thing. I'm not going to go through every single chapter. But there's some key things I think that you need to hear that God's laid on my heart, and I just can't wait to do it. So I'm hoping and praying you guys will desire that. Remember I challenge you, get hungry, get thirsty for God's word? This is that time. We're about to get into the summer. Some of you I'm not going to see for a while. You're going to be doing travel ball, or you're going to be doing vacations or whatever else. We're not going to be doing a lot of what we do normally on Wednesday nights. So this is going to be like the last sermon series. Kind of fill that sermon cup, if you will, and that God just kind of hammer down on you. And hopefully that Proverbs will carry you through. Get you guys ready for college. Feel me? I'm looking at my seniors. And I'm like, thank you. Okay. All right, let's pray, and then you guys go to your groups, okay? Let's pray. Dear God, thank you for tonight. Thank you for just how you speak to us, Father, how you use different books, different authors, different circumstances. And as we go through this book of Proverbs, Father, I pray that we will wise up. Father, we won't lean on our own understanding, that we'll lean into you, that we'll point to you, we'll declare your glory and your honor, and we'll seek after you, Father, and then we'll desire discipline. We'll desire wisdom. Father, that we will be fearful of you, we'll respect your authority in our life. And Father, we don't want to displease you. We don't want to have to be corrected by you. So Father, as you bring things to light in our hearts, bring things to light in our lives, things that we may become idols, things that we've put more focus on than we need to, that Father, you will help advance us spiritually to be closer to you, to lean more on you and trust in you, so that we can not just hear the word, but Father, that we can apply the word, and I pray that we would share it. Father, thank you for the time tonight. We ask that in Jesus' name, amen. All right, guys, I'm going to go real quick.